Hello, coming to you from the crater of an extinct volcano. Not every city's got one of those, but Portland, Oregon does. Mount Tabor Park. And of course, it's the cinder cone, and usually kind of a one-off volcano. Anyways, that was a long time ago, and they've converted the crater into a nice amphitheater for doing concerts and plays and all sorts of other things. I also thought it was going to be the best place to discuss the new Becoming Led Zepplin film, which I caught this last weekend. The band that's very important to me, very important to pretty much everybody, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Sort of like the Beatles, but for me personally, Becoming Led Zepplin was something I had to see. A lot of different feelings about the film. Certainly, it's not hagiography. They're not really trying to make them out into saints. They're not trying to bolster their reputation. I don't think they needed the film in any way. This is more sort of like, if you're going to do this stuff, you're going to do it now. Well, there's still 3 members alive, and they found some lost interview with the deceased drummer and kind of the glue, the foundation of the band, John Bonham. And kind of a once-in-a-generation talent. I mean, you'll hear drummers bag on him or deify him one of 2 different ways. But really, what's special about him was the sound. Just the sheer sound. He had, technical abilities and whatnot, and there's certainly far more technical drummers before and after him. But it's the way he pulled it all together. Big sound. He knew how to swing a band still. Where a lot of rock drummers today couldn't do that to save their lives. Sadly. Anyways, what can I say about the whole thing? Good, not great. Maybe a little better than the David Bowie film that came out a few years ago, because there was so much repetition in that. There was some repetition, but not as much, where they recycle the same old footage over and over again. What I liked about it was that it just focused on the beginning days of the band and how they just didn't come out of nowhere. They did gloss over a few things, like the fact that Jimmy Page really kind of put the band together, had a good idea what he was doing, and he wasn't in some no-name band, he was in the Yardbirds. But that also gave him industry connections. What else about it all? All this stuff is known. It's not really, I'm not giving you any information that you didn't know already. But in terms of, as a review, as a film, what can I say? I appreciate that it wasn't hagiography. They didn't really touch on some of the touchier points, like at the beginning, Jimmy Page could have fired the entire band if it didn't work out when they were the new Yardbirds and they were in Scandinavia doing a gig. They were basically, all the other members were hired, but I think they all knew that they had something going on. But it wasn't a given, and I think what is special is, they talked about the once-in-a-generational talent, the way, Jimmy Page really knew how to put together the sounds of the band because he had taken the time and effort as a professional musician to also learn the production sides. And as an artist, he had some real vision to work with. Like I said, he was in the Yardbirds, and got this along with me. Made in Portland, Oregon, Prescription Electronics Yard Box. One of my favorite distortion boxes used in my new album, Left and Right. I won't play live with it because it's no longer made, and it's actually a few it's a prototype version, and they're no longer made, but it's a prototype version that's just a couple serial numbers away from one that one of my favorite guitarists, Robert Quine, used. Anyways, I didn't realize that Jimmy Page was using something like this with Led Zeppelin. When I plugged it in, I was like, oh, this really kind of gives me what I'm after. Anyways, back to the film. Really interesting. that they didn't mention that he could have fired the other members of the band. So there's a certain detente between the living members and whatnot there. What else is there? Got interrupted. Anyways, a couple things in terms of whether they are prog rock or progressive rock. Certainly, some of the things that Jimmy Page did with the band early, throughout its existence, was stretching the realm of what was possible in music at the time, and even now. That interlude and Dazed and Confused. That's some avant-garde stuff. You just don't hear that anymore. You don't have this sort of exploration in a band trying to make its mark as its debut, as its introduction to its preferred audience. Anyways, I keep getting interrupted. It's a very busy park and it's a beautiful place, so people are here. And there's a bunch of trees that are about to come down in the area, so we have rangers looking at things. Anyways, big storms and winds and water. Anyways, finishing up on the Led Zeppelin part. Yes. Well, what's interesting about the film is that it really shows what pioneers they were, sort of taking that tradition that the Beatles had with Sgt. Pepper's and previous things like Revolver and the White Album, of stretching the limits of what you could expect from rock and roll in a progressive way. They certainly were kind of major forefathers of what became prog rock. The success of singles like, Stairway to Heaven and other things paved the way for a lot of other bands and a lot of other types of music, non-short form music with multiple parts, very ambitious orchestration, that sort of thing. What can I say? Super important to me. I learned from Jimmy Page about that, if you want to get your own sound, you have to look into the production side of things and pay attention, learn all you can, and then figure out what you're going to do different. And my goals in music are not to be big like Led Zeppelin. I'm a visual arts creature who, I guess I'm a cultural historian as well, by training. My master's degree is in it. But also, we live in very difficult times, interesting times, far too interesting at times. And if you can't make art in those times that's relevant, there's something wrong with you if you're artistic, which I apparently am. And I like to support other artistic people, and I see music as a powerful way to affect things. And I guess that's maybe not what Led Zeppelin was trying to do, but they realized something was afoot, and they wanted to be in it. All the different members wanted to be in it in different ways, but eventually they didn't just stumble onto the winning formula. I think Jimmy Page was looking for the winning formula and the right people, and John Bonham was an amazing addition. John Paul Jones, underrated, if that can possibly be, and Jimmy Page, really special. Robert Plant, another once-in-a-generation talent, just the high voice, but also the Elvis-isms, special. Not everybody can cop some of Elvis's mojo. And I think it was an important cultural moment to get out there. What else didn't I like? There wasn't any real interaction between any of the living members of the band with one another. There wasn't this sense of looking back and them drawing different things out of each other. There was just sort of discrete and separate from one another. And I think that's a missed opportunity. there's a lot of, new footage and performances, people who haven't seen Led Zeppelin play, because they couldn't. I didn't see them play, but I did actually hear them. I believe it was in Oakland. My family was driving by the stadium they were performing at, and had us roll down the windows, and they're like, "That over there, that's Led Zeppelin." And I heard it, and I heard John Bonham, Jimmy Page, and I didn't hear any Robert Plant at that moment. There was kind of an instrumental interlude with the instrumentation, although Plant might have been playing some harmonica. I'm not entirely certain. Anyways, made a big impression on me. My family weren't really into Led Zeppelin. My dad was very into music, and I think whenever something important culturally was going on, they liked to point it out to us as kids. I think the only other thing like that I can remember of is Muhammad Ali was having a fight with Leon Spinks, and they're like, "This is an important thing. You should pay attention to this." So I thank my parents for exposing me to, of all things, Led Zeppelin. And then we had a what was it? We had a music class in middle school, and we had a substitute teacher, and she had found a Led Zeppelin record and put it on the record player. I didn't really get into listening to Led Zeppelin until I was in college. I was more into Zappa and Robert Fripp and really just obscure, strange stuff that nobody else listens to even now. Because I'd grown up in orchestras and stuff like that. So I was trying to find things that were outside of the Western canon. But I came to an appreciation of Led Zeppelin later in college. Also growing up in the Midwest, I was born there and grew up mostly there, but I was on the West Coast for 4 years as a kid in California. And what can I say about it? One didn't have to go... one heard Led Zeppelin whether you wanted to or not, and I always respected them, but I never had to seek them out. I never had to go make a point. And I learned a few Zeppelin songs later on, just as I became a guitarist and whatnot, but I wasn't like a big Zeppelin head. To date, they're probably one of my very favorite bands, just because they're so progressive. And those who say they're not prog rock, it's sort of like, well, it's like denying the roots. I mean, it's one of the major tributaries that created the genre. Like, the genre wouldn't exist. They're headwaters for the genre. And I think that's all important. And it was about pushing beyond what was possible in the form and genre. I think today a lot of music is hidebound and formulaic, and most things, everything is of a form, and it's marketed to that form because it's a well-developed market. And that's not what Led Zeppelin was. They created a market. Certainly arena rock, non-singles based music. The film did a great job of pointing that out. I wish they would have gotten more in depth in the interviews, talking about the nitty-gritty of little parts and reminiscences. These are first-person interview chances where you can get some history down. And I guess maybe the historian in me is unsatisfied with the film. But the fan in me, I didn't feel cheated. I thought it was excellent performances, things I'd never seen or heard before. Check it out. Still in theaters for a little while. Signing off from Mount Tabor, the crater of an extinct volcano, because where else are you gonna film something about Led Zeppelin? Here, I'll give you a turnaround. See, some trees came down. This was all once lava spewing out of it.